Hi and welcome or welcome back to my channel. I'm Simon and today I'm back with an extortionate, frankly, January book haul. I did a video a few weeks ago where I talked about intentional book shopping, which I thought I was pretty good at in Edinburgh. Turns out online with my love of Blackwells, clicky click, not so good. That's something that I will chat about a little bit later when we get to those books. But first of all, we're going to talk about books that have come from publishers. As you can see, there is quite a pile. Starting off with books that I have mentioned on the channel before, so I can be very quick with those. These are finished copies. The first of which is Caris Davis Clear. She's one of my favourite authors. This is her latest. Very excited for it. It's out in March. Then we have a book I'm currently reading, which is Hours by Philip B. Williams. It's all about a town called Hours, which has a kind of a magical mysticalness to it. It's in the mid-1800s, around the times of slavery, and this is where freed or soon to be freed, for reasons that you read on very early on, they become freed, and then we follow the people in this sort of secret community. Very, very much enjoying it so far. I should have mentioned actually, I'm realising that novels by poets are becoming some of my favourite books, and Hours is a novel by a poet. It's one such novel, basically. Another novel by a poet that I'm really looking forward to is The Night Alphabet by Joelle Taylor, about a woman who's come to have possibly her last tattoo, and while she's having it done, her body is covered in them, and she starts to tell the stories of those tattoos. Some are from the very recent past, some go further back and further back, possibly into past lives, but also into the future, and I think this sounds incredible. On to other books by publishers that, well, I have shared this book actually before. I ordered it from Australia. This is the Proof of the UK edition. It's The In-Between by Christos Tsiolkas, which I've heard described as being this really brilliant novel about what it's like for a sort of middle-aged queer couple, which I don't think I've read before, so looking forward to that. I was about to say I am middle-aged myself, but no. Oh, well, I'd like to live into my 80s, so therefore technically, hopefully I am middle-aged, but also I don't want that label attached to me. I was also very kindly sent from Atlantic The Diaries of Mr. Lucas by Hugo Greenhalgh, and these are actual diaries that Hugo was left by George Leo John Lucas, kind of about his secret queer life that he had to have for 60 years because there was the Sexual Offences Act. So I think this is going to be really, really riveting. Very excited for this. It's out in May, I should say. This is also out in May. A queer time for Atlantic Books in May. We love to see it. I have the proof of the new Sarah Crossan book, Hey Zoe, her second novel for adults. I loved Here is the Beehive. Was it Here is the Beehive or Behind the Beehive? Here is the Beehive, I was right the first time. Which was a novel in verse about a woman who'd been having an affair with a married man and he dies and she has no one to share her grief with because no one knew about the relationship really. So that was fab. This is about I believe, a woman who finds her husband has this life-size sex doll and what follows on from that discovery. I am intrigued. Also, the final cover is incredible. Two books from the lovely folk at Dawn Books by the same author. And we have The Pachinko Parlour by Eliza Shua Dusapan, translated by Anissa Abbas Higgins. And we have, also translated by Anissa Abbas Higgins, Vladivostok Circus, and I'm going to be doing an event with Eliza in March. These are stunning, I think, absolutely stunning, and I'm really looking forward to talking to her about them. Two books from the lovely folk at Europa. Again, two books by the same author. The first of which is Pet by Catherine Chidgey, which was one of my mum, or the artist formerly known as my mother, now Louise Savage Muses, which is what her channel's called. This was one of her favourite books of last year, a bit of a literary thriller around a teacher and her teacher's pet that goes over several decades, which I'm really, really intrigued for. I think this paperback cover is stunning. The larger paperback, because it didn't come out in hardback, was mint with this red, but this black just really, really stands out, and so I was thrilled that they sent me that. They also very kindly sent me The Axeman's Carnival by Catherine Chidgey, which is a book about a magpie, I believe. I don't know much more. That could go either way, because talking animals, birds, reptiles, sea life, can not always work for me, but I'm going to give this a whirl. Catherine Chigi I have read before. Remote Sympathy was up for the Women's Prize. It was a big chunkster and I didn't love it. However, from what I've heard, every single one of her books is so completely different that she's sure to charm you with one of them, two of them, three of them, four of them, all of them. I don't know. So I'm looking forward to heading to that. Next up is a book that I wasn't sure was going to be very me, but the lovely folk at Dead Ink said, would you like it? And it was set in Ecuador, and it's about a woman whose marriage has failed. Sorry, I should hold it up. I love this cover, by the way. I think this is beautifully done. It's Blood Red by Gabriela Ponce, translated by Sarah Booker. I like the idea of somebody free-falling post a marriage. I've been there over a decade ago. Plus, it's set in Ecuador. And I was like, oh, well, Mum's just been, and she wanted to read some Ecuadorian literature, so they kindly sent us both a copy of this. I'm trying to get to that one in due course. From the lovely folk at Phoenix, I asked for both of these. The first one that I asked for was The Painter's Daughter by Emily Howes, and this is about the artist Gainsborough's daughters. There is a place like a museum, which is also kind of a stately home. Well, it is a stately home and a museum near Liverpool, where there are a lot of Gainsboroughs, and they are stunning. This is about his daughters, and Tracy Chevalier has raved about this, and I'm discovering that if Tracy Chevalier loves a book, invariably I do too. So as for this one, it's out in February. Very much looking forward to it. And while I was in conversation with the lovely Francesca Main at Phoenix Books, I asked for This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things by Naomi Wood, who is an author that I really like the work of. This is her first short story collection. She won the National BBC Short Story Award last year, and yeah, I'm really excited for this too. Lovely big font. You know that I like a nice big font. On to two books that I asked for from the folk at Dialogue. First we have Top Doll by Karen McCarthy Wolf. This is about a woman who dies aged 104, and she's been a massive hoarder in this apartment filled with dolls, and we find out about her life, I think, as somebody goes through that collection. So this sounds really interesting, as does Hot Springs Drive by Lindsay Hunter, which is out by Roxane Gay Books in America. And I'm really intrigued by the books that Roxane Gay publishes with her imprint. And the quote on the cover is all you need to know. It's like 2 lines. Today she walks in on her husband and best friend having an affair. Tomorrow her body will be found. Don't need to know any more than that. Absolutely intrigued. Want to get to this very soon. They also kindly sent me Shanghailanders by Julie Min. I know nothing about this, but Hannah at Dialogue was raving about it. I love this peep cover. Separate Lives of the Yang Family, parent by parent, daughter by daughter. I think this is going to be really interesting. So yeah, there we go. Got that. The lovely folk at Serpent's Tail kindly sent me 2 books, again, 2 books by the same author from a publisher. Constance de Bray's Love Me Tender, I think, is about a woman who has had a child and her husband's battling her to have the child now that she's come out as queer. I think that's right. And then we have Playboy, which I know nothing about, but just thought those 2 looked so lovely together, and just said that on Instagram. And then the lovely folk got in touch and said, would you like them? And I was like, yes, please, thank you very much. So here they are. How lovely. And quite short and sharp, I think they're going to be. They also sent me Night Swimmers by Roisin Maguire, which, what caught my attention with this book was that it was described as Elizabeth Strout, but in Northern Ireland. And that really intrigued me. So yeah, I want to get to this one. I want to get to all of them fairly soon, don't I? I should say, if you've read any of these, and the ones coming, and you didn't enjoy them, don't tell me that in the comments down below, because I'm excited for them and I don't want you to burst my excitement bubble. Then we have a book that I asked for from the lovely folk at Tinder Press. This is A Sign of Her Own by Sarah Marsh. This is about a woman who is deaf and ends up working for, was he called Alexander Bell? Yes, Alexander Graham Bell, who created the telephone. I think that sounds super interesting. I started sign language last year, and you have the alphabet on the inlay of the cover, and it made me want to head to books about the deaf experience, preferably by authors with known experience, and so I'm looking forward to this one. I really want to read True Biz as well by Sarah Novick. So at some point I may get my mitts on that, although, as you'll see, I need to go on a bit of a book buying ban. I have to admit, I didn't love the first book I read by this author. However, the cover of this is so brilliant, I am intrigued, plus the title, Asa, the Girl Who Turned Into a Pair of Chopsticks. This is 3 sort of long short stories, which I know sounds odd, coming out in June? Yeah, June. It's apparently dark, surreal and unsettling, which sounds great, and I do. I just think that cover is absolutely fab. And the title, what a great mixture. Perfect concoction. Then another unsolicited book, and the penultimate book from publishers, Lightborn by Hesse Phillips, which is out in May. There you go. I don't know what it's going to look like. It won't look like this. The stage is set. The player's in position. Has Kit Marlowe made a deal with the devil? And apparently it looks at queer relationships in Elizabethan England, which I don't think I've read before, and also not read that much historical fiction for a while, so I need to get on it. And speaking of historical fiction, actually, we have another unsolicited book that came from Alison and Busby, which is The Other Princess by Denny S. Bryce, and this is all about a princess called Ina, who was born into life as an Egbado princess, and she saw the brutal killing of her entire family, and she then ends up being given as a gift to Queen Victoria. So this book takes us from West Africa to, I don't want to say Waterloo, Windsor. That's what I meant. I'm really, really intrigued with this one. I hadn't heard anything about it until it popped through the letterbox. On to 2 gifts. One lovely gift from Cindy, and this came off my wish list, which is linked below, where I can't get books in independent bookshops or high street bookshops in the UK, which again we're going to talk about in a little bit. And I absolutely loved my first experience of reading this author last year, and Cindy very kindly sent me The Good Lord Bird by James McBride, and this was a National Book Award winner, and it's about a young slave in 1856 who has to leave town and has to be, from that moment, seen as a girl in order to escape. And that to me just sounds super duper interesting, and I think James McBride will write it with just real flair, real heart, real emotion, everything that I loved about, oh, the titles escape me, and I really loved it, and I'm going to feel really awful that I've forgotten it. I'll write it down there below. I know it's got grocery store in it. A book that actually I got before January last year, but my mum had it because I had so much stuff to bring back from when me and mum were booksellers in Harris and Harris. I left a load of stuff with her because I had to go to work for meetings, blah blah blah, and she was coming a few weeks later. Anyway, moving on. This is a proof of The Antique Hunter's Guide to Murder by C.L. Miller, who I met at Harris and Harris that weekend, and this sounds great. C.L. Miller is from the Miller Antiques guidebook, which my granddad used to collect, because my granddad was an antiques dealer, and I used to love flicking through those. And from what she was telling me, she got to kind of go through antiques and find out what will make great murder weapons. So this just sounds like it'll be a lot of fun, so looking forward to that. Now on to books that I bought myself, and I mentioned the first 6 in the Come Book Shopping With Me vlog that I filmed when I was in Edinburgh. I will be filming another one for later this month when I'm in Cambridge. As this goes live, I'll have just got back, I think, from 3 days in Cambridge for work, and then I'm off to Oxford on Wednesday. Cambridge isn't as booky as you would think. Oxford could be trouble. Anyway, the books that I bought there, which I'm not going to go into too much detail of because I talked about them quite a lot in that video, and if you've missed it, I'll link it down below. We have The Monsters of Templeton by Lauren Groff, Girlfriends by Emily Shue, Nothing Left to Fear from Hell by Alan Warner, Things We Do to Our Friends by Heather Darwin. Read it. We have That's Love by Leonora Brito. I'm just checking that I haven't read anything that's going to happen. Then we have Housewoman by Adora Nwora, which I started and have DNF for now for reasons that I'll talk about in my wrap up. We'll talk about that then. In that video, I also talked about some books that I really was like hunting after. In fact, actually, no, I don't think I did talk about all of it. Well, I did. Yes, I did. Two of them. One of them I didn't. The first one is The House Next Door by Sonal Colley, which has got a quote on the cover by Karis Davis, one of my favourite authors. And this is about 3 generations of an Indian family told in that amount of pages. I am intrigued. I generally really enjoy fiction set in India, so this is one that I'm quite hyped for and will read fairly soon. And the other one was Mother's Instinct by Barbara Abel. And the reason I couldn't find this anywhere is because it was an import, as it's not been published here yet. It might be soon though, because it's going to be a film with Jessica Chastain and Anne Hathaway. So I'm really, really, really intrigued for it, because it's about 2 neighbours who are really good friends until something awful happens to one of their children, and then things spiral out of control. And a book that I kicked myself for not buying when I was in Golden Hair Books was 100 Days by Alice Pung. So I ordered this. This has also been an Amory's book club choice, and I love the books that Amory picks when I get to them. This is about a woman who has been basically not quite locked up, but she's been consigned to her room in the lead up to her pregnancy, and it looks at possibly some of the sinister reasons behind that, but also the cultural reasons behind that. I think this sounds really, really intriguing. I think it's going to be a short, sharp corker as well. I feel like big, chunky epics and short, sharp corkers are kind of the direction I want to go. I'm generally a 350-page book loving man, but I feel like I need to go to either end of the spectrum more. 2 books that I bought in the sale for this publisher, Prototype, were Laurie and Joe by Amy Arnold, which is up for the Goldsmiths Prize. I've wanted to read her for a while, ever since I got her first novel, title of course escaping me completely right now. Slip of a Fish. I still haven't read that, but I was intrigued for this one. I wasn't expecting them to be so small. That's one thing. I was expecting them to be sort of, you know, where's the usual paperback size? I was expecting them to be that size, not that size, and that might, yeah, that. The other one was Pleasure Beach by Helen Palmer, which is a queer love story set in Blackpool, and I was like, oh, the North. I think also Laurie and Joe is a northern set novel, and I would like to read a lot more books set in the north of England, because when I do, as I have been, well, as I was in January, I really, really, really love them, because there's something about that setting that just really sings to me, and just, I love northern people, and they're the best, the end. So yeah, intrigued for both of these, and it was lovely to support an independent publisher as well. On to some second-hand books now, which I bought when I was in Erdig the other weekend, which you'll see in a forthcoming vlog. I've already read the first one, however, I didn't have this edition, and it was £2, and I was like, oh my goodness, I need to get it. It's Mr. Chartwell by Rebecca Hunt, and I'm thrilled that I have this in my hands, because I don't think I've ever shouted about this on the channel, but it's brilliant. It's about Mr. Chartwell, who was the black dog that Winston Churchill described his depression as, and it's what would happen if that black dog came to life. It's honestly brilliant. I also saw her second novel, Everland, at the same wonderful National Trust secondhand bookshop, and so picked this up. I do have the lovely proof, which actually goes really nicely with this one, and but this is one that I'm going to read as I sort of cart it about at some point, because you know what I'm like with, if a proof is really, really super pretty, I don't want to batter it or anything. I want to, you know, save it for specials. So yeah, but I'm very, very intrigued for this. Know nothing about it other than it's set in, I always get this wrong, Antarctica. There we go. I always get the Arctic and the Antarctic mixed up. And I got some non-fiction from there, which I'm super excited about. That's why I'm patting my knee, that excited. It's These Silent Mansions by Jean Sprackland, and this is about a life in graveyards. I used to be a tour guide at Highgate Cemetery, and I love a graveyard. I love just the silence of them and the calm, but also all the little histories that are going on there that, like, you don't really know about. You just see names and you get a little bit out of how long they lived, or the relationships, or who they're buried with, etc. And this looks at that, because this looks at a cemetery or graveyard near Jean, and she finds out about some of the people buried in there, and I just think this is going to be absolutely brilliant. I'm really excited for it. When I was in Hull just earlier this week, back when it was still January. I'm filming this on Friday, the 2nd. But yeah, earlier this week I was in Hull and I picked up 2 books from Wrecking Ball Press, which is also a shop in Hull where you can get vinyl and also fabulous books. And these are published by them. They're 2 poetry collections by the same author, who describes himself as the 4th best poet in Hull. I've read this one, Sometimes I'm So Happy I'm Not Safe on the Streets by Dean Wilson, and also Take Me Up the Lighthouse by Dean Wilson. I think if I show you the lighthouse on the back, you'll get the gist of what these poems are like. Well, I've not read the second one because I'm now going to savour it because I love this first one so much. I'm also slightly in lust with that cover, let's not lie. They're very much humorous, queer, northern, gritty, daft, but in a brilliant way, and I absolutely loved this, but I feel like I've given too much away before my wrap up. Those were all books that I got in certain places or from certain trips or publishers. A book that I had imported is Vanishing Monuments by John Elizabeth Stinsey. They're an author that I'm really, really keen to read, who are from Canada. They have written a book about a volcano that I was going to read early this year. However, one of the savage reading prompts is to read a book with a volcano on the cover, so I'm going to save that for later. And instead, I think this is about someone whose parent has Alzheimer's, and also they're a photographer, and it looks at memory and vanishing monuments or vanishing moments. It's titled as Vanishing Monuments, but I'm just also thinking of Vanishing Moments. Moving on. If you're wondering for a book for the Savage Prompts, which if you don't know are 13 prompts picked from a jar of suggestions by lots of you lovely lot that me and my mum are reading to this year, here's my volcano. And that would be perfect for that prompt. So there we are. Anyway, but that's not this book. This book is Vanishing Moments. So yeah, very much looking forward to getting to that soon. All of the next books are books that I have bought from Blackwell's. Blackwell's and I have had a bit of a love affair in January. It's been a bit overly passionate with clicking and just purchasing, and I'm putting a stop on that relationship for the rest of the month. Well, I think this might be what I'm planning on doing going forward for a while. No longer buying any books online, even from Blackwell's, even from World of Books, but also because World of Books has been, the quality hasn't been great, even though they do give money to the authors of the secondhand books. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. I need to rein it in, and what I'm planning on doing is keeping lists of books that I'm interested in, and then when I go to independent bookshops, purchasing them there. Anyway, let's crack on with quite a bit of poetry. So first up, Reddit, Sean Hewitt's Rapture's Road. This was one that I had pre-ordered. Sean Hewitt's one of my favourite poets, and I really, really, really love this collection. I'll talk about it more in my wrap-up. Also has a snake on the cover, which is perfect for the January Savage prompt. And I should have mentioned that actually with the Heather Darwent as well. That was perfect for that. It's here. Hang on. There you go. Another book with a snake on the cover and actually the side and the back. Anyway, there we have that. I can't remember where I saw this on Instagram, but I was so intrigued. But this is Unutterable Visions, Perishable Breath by Otamere. Oh, I can't read that on the side, the font's too small. Otamere Guabadia. And I'm really, really intrigued for this. I think it's going to look at lust in all its forms. And it even says that it celebrates poetry as queer forms with fragments and all sorts. So I think that's going to be fab. And Reddit, Greekling by Kostya Tzolkis, and this I thought was phenomenal. I saw it on, what's the bookshop called? It's an indie bookshop. They're having an event with him, and I was hoping to be able to go, but now I can't. But I'm still thrilled that I've read it, and this started a new little sort of thing that I'm going to be doing, which is to read poetry collections in the bath. It's a little bit pretentious, but actually it was blinking lovely to do, and this is just a corker, so we'll talk about that soon. I pre-ordered All the Violet Tiaras by the wonderful Jean Menzies, who many of you will know on BookTube, and this is Queering the Greek Myths, and very excited for this. Non-fiction delight, I think it's going to be, or wonder, I'm going to say. So yeah, really, really excited to get to this, and would like to read much more non-fiction this year. Speaking of which, I saw Alan Carr recommending this next book, and he has recommended non-fiction before that I've absolutely loved. So I ordered on Blackwell's The Wager by David Gran, and this is a tale of shipwreck, mutiny and murder. Now, I really loved David Gran's The Lost City of Z, or Z. I thought that was absolutely phenomenal, and I've meant to read him ever since, especially because I have heard incredible things about Killers of the Flower Moon, and indeed really want to see the movie, but want to read the book first. So I ended up getting a twofer. These just sound so very different and very, very exciting, and I just think the way he writes non-fiction, narrative non-fiction, is just brilliant. So looking forward to those. A short story collection next that I have read. This was a book that I bought because it was the only book, I think, on the Dylan Thomas Prize longlist I hadn't heard of, and that always really, really intrigues me. It's Local Fires by Joshua Jones. These stories about the town in South Wales called Llanelli, and this is lots of different characters living there in a town that is sort of stuck in the past, but also is trying to move forward, trying to develop, and it's how people are both stuck in the past and also trying to move forward. And I just thought it was brilliantly done. More on that when I do my wrap up. Then I picked up I didn't pick it up, I ordered it. Confrontations by Simone Atangoa Begona. I've just realised, where are the books that I bought from West Kirby Bookshop when I went in there? Oh, it's because I've not unwrapped it yet. There we go, sorry, moving on. That I will share at some point, but it's also a book that I've shared with you before anyway. It's their book of the month. I'll put a picture of it here. Anyway, I saw this there and and ahed, but then decided to order it from Blackwell's. And this, if you've seen my video where I talk about reading by whim and can I do it, and how I talk about in that video how I will be drawn to books because I think, oh, that would make a great themed reading blog. And this was going to be a themed reading blog that also featured this, because I feel like this sort of, these cutout shapes on a white background with quite neon covers is becoming a bit of a trend. And I thought it would be interesting to make a video about cover trends, but then I didn't. So I've still got this though. It's meant to be fantastic. It's translated by Suzanne Hoekensveld Jansen, and it's about a woman who, well, it's about a young girl who was bullied for years and suddenly snapped, and what happened and what happens to her after that. And it's meant to be phenomenal. Again, short, sharp corker, I believe. And then last but not least, 2 thrillers. I was in the mood, well, I've read one. I was in a thriller mood, and I was going to make, again, a vlog where I read lots of thrillers. Didn't do it. But one of the ones that I ordered was One of the Good Guys by Araminta Hall, which I saw loads of people raving about on Bookstagram, and it really tempted me, and I thought, oh, go on then, why not? I haven't yet, but I will at some point. I think it's about a husband who's definitely not listening, which I know is a bit of a trope in crime. However, the vibes that I hate using the word vibes, but I don't know if I use it a lot. The impressions I was getting from social media were that this had quite a different take on it, so that's cool. Finally, also a book that I've read, I got Tess Gerritsen's The Spy Coast as I went to see her talk about this at Lingham's, another bookshop that we have on the Wirral, and then had dinner with Tess. Tess is one of the authors that got me back into reading in my early 20s when I hadn't for years. I say Tess was. My friend Polly bought me a copy of The Surgeon, about a psychopathic surgeon, to read just before I was going to have an operation. Thankfully, she also bought me Rebecca, which I read instead for possibly obvious reasons, and that was it. The reading door was ajar. Books have flooded in ever since, and yeah, I went back to my love of books, which I had when I was a kid, but lost at school, and then I stopped reading from 16 to about 23, I think. Anyway, this is the first in a new series of novels that Tess is writing about spies, and yeah, it was brill, so I'll talk about that in my wrap-up too. Blimey, that was a lot of books. I'd love to know if you've read any of these and you love them. If you didn't love them, don't tell me. You can tell me about the ones that I've read if you didn't love those in the wrap-up when I talk about it, because when I do a wrap-up, fair game, tell me whatever you think on the books I talk about there, but just don't burst my bookish bubble of joy with these ones, because I'm very excited about them. I don't know what else I was going to say then. I was going off on a tangent. I really need to get going. I've got to get to Cambridge today, and it's a train strike, and it could be quite a time. Well, it's a train strike on the way back too. Let's all move swiftly on. I hope you're all doing super duper well. Thank you as always for watching. If you'd like more content from me, my Instagram, my whatever other stuff that I do is linked below, along with my wish list, which thank you Cindy for my treat from that, and other stuff. The books won't be there because they're a bit too long, plus I'll be editing this on a train and stuff and trying to upload it as soon as I'm back from Cambridge, but that's a little bit too much information. I will speak to you all in another video very, very soon. Bye.